But as you get into rural Canada, it seems to me that we are starting to be at a loss. That is, we're up against an aging farming population. We just pointed out that there's 66% of them don't really have plans to pass it along.
No.
That means that we could be losing our food in Canada. Hi, thanks for joining us. This is TPLmedia.ca. Don't forget, you might have the local version already operating in your neighborhood. Go to TPLmedia.ca/local. And if you find us there, then you'll get your local news, weather, great deals on groceries, and updates from right there in your community. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the agri world here in Canada. On occasion, I ask our very own Paul Micucci, Paul, tell me a story. Explain something to me. Today's one of those moments. Paul, thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks, Mike.
Recently, as we are traveling the country, by the way, keep up with us. Follow us on all the socials, and you'll make your way across Canada with us. By the time this is airing, you guys are already in the East Coast.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Mike.
But this is something that I'm bringing back actually from the West Coast. And I think that you can give me some insight, because as we started to talk about this, I was like, wait, we got a show.
Oh, yeah.
Out West, I started seeing billboards encouraging people to get into farming.
Yeah.
There's podcasts out there that feature women getting into farming as entrepreneurs. There's a huge push to develop farming in Canada. And it actually made me worry a little bit. Are we on decline here in Canada when it comes to farming?
Oh, yeah, of course we are. For decades. Right? And we've known it, Mike. This isn't something that just crept up on us. We've known it for many decades that people were leaving the farms. They're going to the cities.
Yeah.
The biggest issue right now, if you own a farm, is what do you do with it when you retire?
Yeah. This is a crazy stat.
Yeah.
66% of farm producers do not have a succession plan in place, leaving the future of farmland kind of up in the air.
Yeah.
The kids don't want to farm.
You know, you're driving along and you see that kind of decrepit, rundown farmhouse. That's a property that's been passed along and the kids didn't want to come back.
Right.
So that house just fell apart. It's sitting there and they're leaving it as development land that probably they'll never be able to use in their lifetime. They're paying property taxes on it.
They've probably already leveraged it into the things they want to do financially in their life. It's sitting there as just an asset.
Yeah, but the interesting part is those assets that are sitting in their life are now their assets that they have in the cities are devaluating, and the assets in the country are appreciating. So
that's an interesting place to be.
It's switched, right? For years and years, when I was involved in the farming world, it was couple thousand for an acre. It varied about how good the acreage was you were getting and what the farmland was, but it was fairly reasonable to get into it. It wasn't a backbreaker to buy a farm. The issue really was covering your property tax, making sure you got the tax breaks by farming it, whether you're a hobby farmer or not, whether you're a full-time farmer. That was something to look at. But, that's really all the things you worried about. But as I got into it, I'd meet people and that were farming around me, and they were usually in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. They were older gentlemen and ladies, really happy, really good neighbors and nice to deal with.
They've enjoyed being farmers.
They loved it. They had a good community, lived in small towns. They didn't have all the stresses we have living in the city with traffic, but they didn't have really anyone coming back to pass them on to. And so as time went on, it became less and less, and you saw less equipment, less farming, less dealerships. That John Deere dealership that was on every corner started to disappear, for quite some time. So I thought, Mike, here's the interesting thing. When I started to see farming have a little bit of a resurgence, I thought it was new immigrants coming back to farm.
Yeah, I'm seeing this. Like there's in my neighborhood, for example, there's a couple of Sikh farms. Like they even say, Sikh farm. And I think that's because they want to promote to their community that they're there farming. But there's a lot of immigrant farmers in my neighborhood. I made the same assumption.
Yeah. But then when I got into the show, so then I started to dive into the show and I'm looking, I'm thinking to myself, okay, who's buying up farms. So I go and start to look at the real estate pages, and I start to take a look at who's buying farms. It turns out it's funds and companies, and they're buying massive amount of acreage. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, and it's U.S. Investors, it's Canadian investors, it's new Canadian investors, but they're not buying like one or two farms like I thought. Like to your point, Indian family comes from India. They've been farming all their life.
Right.
They decide to buy 200 acres of farmland.
We're going to get into farming here in Canada. It's a natural progression. Yeah.
No. Well, to an extent, but it's done very differently than I thought, and I haven't been involved in farm communities for years. So I had to refresh kind of who was doing what. But really what it is now, it's big funds that come in and they look at it like a hedge against inflation. They want to diversify their assets, their portfolios, and they basically are tired of putting all their eggs in commercial real estate. A show we just did previously where we looked at logistics and trucking and containers and shipping.
It's a precarious commercial market right now.
It is, and they don't want all their eggs in that basket, so they've got into, as a kind of a hedge or a financial instrument, they've got into the farmland acquisition mode because they can diversify their portfolio. And they're looking at it, they're looking at it very, organically I'll use, but theoretically. They're using it they're saying land is a limited supply.
Right. God ain't making any more.
God ain't making any more. So come to Canada, you pick up a lot of land. The population continues to grow. An argument, I don't know. In Canada, it has, but that's been for immigration purposes. Mm-hmm. Our birth rates have been horrifically bad. So I don't know if that's the greatest assumption, but they make it. Food demand remains relatively stable.
Okay.
So I think that's probably a good assumption. Yeah. And farmland, it's historically appreciated. So, and it continues to appreciate. And, I was looking at some properties as we were getting ready for the show. My wife and I, she says, let's get into farming. I'm like, well, let's look at what farming costs, right? And as we're going through, she's, $30,000 an acre, 40, even as high as 100 and something thousand an acre. Whereas when I was involved in it, it was actually, like I said, 1,000 per acre,
right.
Not, 3,000 was kind of the max you paid per acre. That was kind of the rule of thumb where we lived. But now, those properties are going out at 40, 50, 60,000 an acre. But
in rural Canada, where farming is a big thing, the price per acre, I think, is based a lot on the yield and not so much on the real estate value, which yes. I think just outside of the GTA here in Toronto or outside of the greater Calgary area, for example, mm-hmm. might be a little bit pricier, fancy ranches and things like that.
Yeah.
Hobby farms, as you point out. But as you get into rural Canada, it seems to me that we are starting to be at a loss. That is, we're up against an aging farming population. We just pointed out that there's 66% of them don't really have plans to pass it along.
No.
That means that we could be losing our food in Canada.
Yeah,
which is a major deal for us.
Yeah, a component of it. And I think, some people who are savvy, and these, interesting, you look at the traditional families, the Irving family, for example, right. Potato family, they've got into it big time. The Nielsen family got into it in Western Canada. And then Robert Angelic, another Canadian,
right.
has actually done a huge purchase of farmland.
I saw that, yeah.
And then, you have other institutions like Bonnyfield got into it big time. The Monette Farms got into it. So they've really decided to buy up a lot of property. And I started looking and I'm thinking, okay, so we see a lot of Canadians and some non-Canadians buying just property because they can buy acres and acres and acres of it. Rich U.S. Billionaires have come in and bought property. It seems to cause a little bit of ripple. You look online, there's not happy people about
right.
that, but they're doing it for estates, right? So that's a whole different thing. But I went and I said, okay, is there any case or information available about Canadians going to the U.S. and doing the same thing? And I was shocked because this had apparently, and I didn't know this, had become quite a controversial issue in turn of the millennium.
Canadians Canadians buying U.S. farms.
Yes, yes. We are the largest foreign